Hi everyone, thanks so much for tuning in today. This is Kathy. Today I am sharing the third and final video featuring the Which Way is the Candy stamp set by My Favorite Things. And I started out with a piece of 80-pound Nina Solar White cardstock. It's cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I used my masks as placement so I would know where to stamp the images. I stamped the cat first because I wanted her to be in front of the witch, and then I stamped the witch, and I am using Memento Tuxedo black ink because it is Copic friendly, and of course there will be a whole lot of Copic coloring going on. Once I had those images stamped out, I was going to stencil that spiderweb background all over it, and then I realized that I better put those masks back down, otherwise I would have ink all over them. So as you can see, I'm getting those masks back into place. And once I do that, I actually add a layer of color over the white cardstock before I stencil. And the ink that I use for that is Twisted Citron Distress Oxide ink. And I'm using a sponge rather than the ink blending tool, just so that I could use a really light hand. I just wanted to add just a tiny little bit of color to the background before I started the actual stenciling. After I had that layer down, I obviously am taping down the stamped panel to the stencil. And the stencil was actually cut with my Cricut, and it's the same cut file that I used in one of the cards in the first video. The other two videos will be linked at the end of this one, and there will also be a recap of all 5 cards at the end of this video. I had gone over the stencil there. I'd used the Twisted Citron, and then I wanted to add a little bit of a darker green around the edge. So I brought in Mowed Lawn Distress Oxide ink. Then I decided that I wanted even more contrast. So I put the stencil back in place and went over it with a little bit heavier hand this time. Still using the Mowed Lawn, blending it out there with the Twisted Citron, and adding even more Mowed Lawn because I wanted some more contrast. Once I was done with the stenciling, to fill in the brighter white areas of the spider webs, I just went over it with the Twisted Citron with a pretty light hand. Then I removed the masks and I was ready to start coloring, and I will leave you with some music while I do that. Once I had all of the images colored and had that little bat cut out, I placed where I was going to stamp the sentiment. Used the same ink, Memento Tuxedo Black, to stamp the sentiment. And then I decide that I'm going to trim down the panel a little bit so I can add a black mat behind it. It measures roughly 4 by 5 1/4. The black mat is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. I adhered the stamped panel down to the black and then the black onto a top folding purple card that is an A2 sized card. And then I used some foam tape to pop up the bat on the front of the card there. All of the supplies will be listed below. The individual Copic markers will be listed over on my blog, and I'll be sure to link to that blog post below as well. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you again soon.